Good evening. I'd like to call the January 5th, 2015 Board of Selectmen's meeting to order. Does anybody have any announcements?
Madam Chair?
Mr. Smith.
In case my LinkedIn account was correct, I would like to congratulate Mr. Aspinwall for 24 years in service to the town. His role, I think I saw something about it as the anniversary.
2 days.
In 2 days?
In 2 days.
In 2 days.
In 2 days.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
I don't have LinkedIn, so I wouldn't know that, but... Anything else? Okay. First item on the agenda is an appointment to the Board of Assessors. Mr. Aspinwall?
Chair, I defer to Ms. Dumont.
Ms. Dumont.
So I'd like to introduce Paul Keyes. He's one of our new Board of Assessors, and he has an extensive background in appraising. He does fee appraising for banks and refinancing.
Mortgage companies.
Mortgage companies.
Lawyers.
So I think he's going to be a good asset to the town. We just had our board meeting tonight, and he had to excuse himself because he was not on the board as yet. But he's passed his Corey check, flying colors, and just like to welcome him to the town. If you have any questions, you're free to ask him.
It's your appointment.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any questions. Does anybody else have any questions?
No.
Mr. Keyes, would you like to say something?
Oh, thank you for having me.
And I was going to say, you're not obligated to, but just in case.
No, but
Okay.
thanks for your service. I know this is sometimes a difficult position to fill for us, so thank you. Madam Chair,
Mr. Smith.
move that the Board of Selectmen appoint Mr. Paul Keyes to the position of assessor.
No. Position to the Board of Assessors.
To the Board of Assessors. I'm sorry, to the Board of Assessors.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to appoint Paul Keyes to the Board of Assessors. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations.
Thank
And
you.
thank you. Okay, well, why don't we do number 15008, which is the water bill abatement for the library? And I'm just doing that because our next appointed, okay, I'll do that. 7:35 is for the Clyde Brown presentation. It's not quite 7:35, so I want to wait till then. So I'll do the abatement for the library. Ms. Neville?
Hi. The bill that we submitted to you, I think it's 1250, was a bill that had been left over from the construction part of the library. It was prior to us moving in, and it was part of, from our understanding from the Permanent Building Committee, part of the settlement. And we've been keeping it with us the whole time, and we'd like to sort of clear the records. At this point, we thought maybe there was some sort of settlement going on, so we wanted to make sure it was part of it.
Mr. Aspinwall?
Madam Chair, the bill in question was in fact from water and sewer charges that the contractor incurred as part of the global approach to the settlement of the roof and all the other issues surrounding closing out the project. We did not reach agreement. We did not charge them or decided not to charge them for this. So obviously the trustees don't have this amount budgeted, and I think it's worthwhile in the spirit of settling out this this phase of the project to abate this amount.
Okay, so I see the water sewer bill. I don't see the abatement form.
No.
I see a letter. So, but what I wanted to point out and why I point that out, because that's certainly something that you can, right? We have an abatement form. We usually do, right?
Right.
Is that you're asking for an abatement of $1250.67, but there's also interest due on that. So I would imagine that that would also be part of the request.
I thought that was including the interest.
No, I just
No,
did the
it's
math.
separate.
Because you indicate here that you've paid the current bill,
Yes,
So when I subtract the current bill from what's shown here as the total amount due,
okay,
the amount is actually 1507.78.
okay.
Yeah, there's actually an interest due column there, it's 200, is that 257?
Right, but I think she's saying she thought it was added in there.
Oh, okay.
But it's not.
It's not.
So what do you want me to get?
The form? Don't you have to do the form?
You don't have to. It's
Oh, okay.
customary. We can
All
do
right.
it.
Or would you like to
after.
modify your request to include that interest charge?
I would like to modify my request to include that interest charge, please.
Okay.
What's the other?
So the total then becomes 15, and you can check my math, as I know you will, Mr. Smith.
0.67, nope. And what is it? It's,
257.11,
and what did you have?
1507.78.
Yes. Okay.
Alrighty.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Smith,
I move that the Board of Selectmen do approve an abatement for the water sewer bill for the library in the amount of $1,507.78.
I'll second.
it's been moved and seconded to approve a request for abatement by the Millis Board of Trustees for the library water sewer bill in the amount of $1,507.78. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
And I think our time is right now. However, I would just like to make an announcement. One of the items under old business, which is the Kensington Place LIP approval, is we're not doing that this evening. I'm going to assume we're going to reschedule it for our next meeting, right?
Right. Yes, Madam Chair, we received a request late today from the applicant's attorney to reschedule.
Okay. And would that, do you know if they wanted it for the next event, the next
Yes.
January 26th?
Right.
Okay. So I just wanted to make that announcement in case anybody's here, particularly for that item. That it will not be discussed tonight, but it will be discussed on January 26th. And that brings us to the Clyde Brown Millis School Building Authority project overview. Mr. Catalano.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We appreciate the opportunity to be here. Myself and Denise Gibbons from the school committee will be doing a joint presentation. I believe you have the presentation in your packet, but it's also up on the screen. We're here for several reasons tonight. One, we want to provide information on the existing conditions at the Clyde Brown School. We want to discuss a funding opportunity that was presented to us last May and formalized by the Massachusetts School Building Authority. They voted us into a process back in June of last year, and it's a 270-day process, and we're coming close to the end of that, and that's why we're here tonight to ask for permission and ask for your approval for both a special town election and a special town meeting to fund a feasibility study. And the requirements are, our 270-day cycle ends on 3/16, so all of these conditions have to be met by March 16th, and we're looking for a special election on February 23rd, and looking for a town meeting on March 9th. And then also, we want to review the proposed ballot question wording for approval. So I want to go quickly through the existing needs, talk about the MSBA funding opportunity, and then get to the request that we just outlined. The Clyde Brown School needs significant repair. Many of our systems are at the end of their useful life. Many of the systems are not code compliant, and based on a Tetra Tech study and also studies done internally with Mr. Byrne, the Director of Operations for the schools, we're estimating that the urgent system repairs are roughly $3.9 million. And these are repairs that need to be done within 0 to 5 years. And the funding requirement, we'd be funding these system repairs within 2 to 5 years, with or without the MSBA funding. And this is just a breakdown of the $3.9 million. We have close to $1.7 billion in HVAC repairs. We have a roof replacement. We have fire and life safety compliance issues. We have ADA compliance, we have boilers, we have plumbing. So these are just repairs based on systems that are at the end of their useful life, and they do not cover any of kind of the overcrowding or the space needs issues. These are just system repairs. There's some other issues there. Some of the building contains asbestos in the original floor tiles. We have exterior walls without insulation under each window, which does impact our heating bill each year. Some of the interior floors that were installed in 1990 are at the end of their useful life. We do need to do an environmental study to determine the scope of the asbestos and whether lead paint exists. We need to upgrade our outdated computer network, and eventually we need to look at replacement of all external windows. So overcrowding. The classroom sizes in the Clyde Brown right now are significantly under the MSBA requirements. The MSBA puts out requirements for kindergarten, elementary schools, and then middle and high schools, and all of our classroom sizes right now at the Clyde Brown are under those requirements. We have many closets that have been converted to classrooms and therapy spaces. We have occupational and physical therapy being held in a music room. Our cafeteria size is substantially small, and so much so that we actually have to start lunches at 10:30 a.m. right through, I think, close to 1 o'clock. So we're starting fairly early. 40% of the library was repurposed several years ago for classroom space. We have little or no space for family services, meeting spaces. We're low on adequate bathrooms. We have a lack of meeting and teacher preparation spaces. And we've turned storage rooms and storages into offices and classrooms with no exterior light, really no good ventilation. So we've pretty much have used every space of the Clyde Brown as much as we can, and we're repurposing spaces that were not meant to be classrooms and offices. So Dean's going to talk about the funding.
Hello. Thank you. So as the committee's been working over the course of the past, at a minimum, 4 years, identifying what these needs are and the costs associated with them, they've also been looking to try to figure out ways to defray the cost for the town. So part of that is a process with the Mass School Building Authority that allows the committee and the town to submit what's called a statement of interest to this group that allows for funding to come into a community to be able to help assist with some of these. So the Mass School Building Association, just for a little bit of informational purposes, has a dedicated revenue stream from the state of Massachusetts. They get a penny on every sales tax amount that comes in. So that money is allocated to fund school projects for repair, renovation, or rebuilding. The goal of the MSBA is to provide fiscally responsible and educationally appropriate school facilities for all the towns in Massachusetts. So for Millis, what does that mean to us as far as how much money that we could benefit from the MSBA? The current reimbursement rate for 2014 is 51%. The way that the MSBA reimburses is they reimburse as you go. So if Millis were to choose to move forward, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, with a feasibility study, the reimbursement for that feasibility study would come as the funds would be expended by the town of Millis. So there's not a waiting period for that. They pay as you go, or reimburse as you go, if you will. So Millis has submitted to the MSBA for the past 4 years and has been denied application until this current Clyde Brown submission. The Clyde Brown submission from 2013 was submitted to address the age systems that Steve spoke about, to try and update or repair or replace the existing building, and also to address some of the overcrowding systems that Steve mentioned, issues rather, that Steve mentioned as well. So what's happened with this process? Back in April, the town, in conjunction with the school committee and the school administration, submitted a statement of interest to the MSBA. That statement of interest was initially denied. Last May, the MSBA came to the school committee and to the school administration, and because some other towns weren't able to satisfy their MSBA requirements, Millis was provided the opportunity to jump into the pool, if you will, for funding. The school committee discussed this at a meeting back in May, decided it would be appropriate to move forward with it as we wanted to try and take advantage of the funding opportunity. And then since May, various milestones have been completed. So we've outlined those here. There are understanding of the rules and regulations of coming into the MSBA process that's been completed. There are the forming of a school building committee that's also been completed. Systems and capital maintenance plans have also been completed and submitted, and we've also in December just finalized the enrollment projections, and those have been certified by the MSBA as well. Because the 2013 SOI was originally denied, Millis had submitted an additional SOI in 2014. The needs are so great that we go for it every year in an attempt to try and be successful with one of them. We did find out in December that the 2014 SOI was denied. So we are now full force and forward with the 2013 SOI through the MSBA program. So what happens now? A requirement of the MSBA process is a feasibility study. What this study includes is a detailed review of the entire educational program for the whole district of Millis, a space summary to determine whether we have the appropriate space to provide both local and state required services, site development requirements, which can include such things as geotechnical analysis, environmental studies. They do things even down to the point of validating that the town owns the land that the building is built on. They determine what the code requirements are. They determine what permits we have to pull. The MSBA has very distinct requirements for what has to happen in this feasibility study and for the output that needs to come out of the process. We've provided the link here for what that is. It's very lengthy. If folks would like additional information, we welcome them to go and look at the MSBA website. So what comes out of the feasibility study? As part of the process, Millis will be provided with multiple options to solve the problem. We don't know what those options are yet. Those will all be a byproduct of the feasibility study. As part of that, we get schematic designs for each of those options, cost estimates for each of those options, and then after the options are provided, then we move into a phase where we have community outreach for people to give their feedback on each of the options. And then also as part of the feasibility study, all the pieces of information that are required by the MSBA are factored into the feasibility study and the costs associated with it. So we get to the cost of the feasibility study. Based on the research that we've done, we've estimated that the feasibility study cost will be $1 million. There's a percentage breakdown that the MSBA provides as far as how to determine which disciplines will receive the different dollar amounts as part of the $1 million. So the first item that occurs is hiring what they call an owner's project manager. It's project management services that start at the outset of the project. They help to hire and identify who the design engineer will be. They guide us through the whole entire project. That project manager, if the town chose to move forward, would be with us from the inception of the project. Their role is to be the conduit between whoever the designer is, the town, the school administration, and the school committee, and the community. So they will be responsible and accountable to all of those parties for the project. So you can see the breakdown here. The project management fees are 20%. The design fees are 65%. The environmental studies fees are 10%. And then we've added a 5% contingency here based on what we've seen from other towns. This estimate is based off of towns that have gone through or are in the process of projects of similar size and scope. So we looked at 15 other projects that are in the MSBA pipeline that are elementary school with the same type of scope that the Millis Clyde Brown School is looking at right now. The average cost of a feasibility study that is slated to occur in 2015 is $900,000. For all of those other comparables that we looked at, Millis is larger in both enrollment and the size of Clyde Brown than all of those other communities. The ones that are slated for 2015 have all been voted and approved on by their towns, starting from late summer and as recently through as November. So how does the MSBA opportunity benefit the town of Millis? It allows us to complete the repairs that are required at the Clyde Brown. It allows us to get 51% reimbursement of those repairs, And in addition to that, 15% reimbursement of any renovations that are associated with the project at the building. As Steve mentioned earlier, the repair alone doesn't address all of the needs that the district has, and the renovation that would occur as part of this project would also help ease in the district overcrowding. There are ways that will be fleshed out as part of the feasibility study. They will look at both the middle high school and the Clyde Brown to determine district needs, and then work with us to try and determine how best we could meet those needs by making some adjustments at the Clyde Brown. So it is not just repair, it's repair and renovation. We're not ruling anything out. Every option is open as part of the feasibility study. The options will be determined at the end of that and then presented both to the town boards, committees, and also to the community at large. Stephen mentioned earlier that we have specific requests of the board. One thing I'm actually going to talk about before we talk about the requests is just additional information for the public. So we're here tonight presenting to the board. There's a school committee meeting tomorrow night. We'll be giving a similar presentation to try and educate members of the community. We'll also be presenting to the Finance Committee on the 14th of the month. There'll be a school committee meeting on January 20th where the topic will be discussed again. And then we'll be having 3 community outreach sessions that will be scheduled and published on the Millis School website by the close of this week. So those will be completed by Friday. There's a website that will be live midday tomorrow or by close of business tomorrow. We'll be communicating via listserv and trying to get information out to the public and welcome feedback from everyone with questions, concerns. The email address for the school committee is posted on the website. We encourage folks to give us feedback, send questions, whatnot. So forgive me, I just wanted to put the piece of information out there before we talk about the specific requests. So before we take questions, I just wanted to reiterate what Steve had mentioned at the outset, which is tonight we're looking for endorsement of the Clyde Brown project. The project right now entails only the feasibility study. Looking to determine whether we have the ability to move forward with approval on holding a special town election, which will be required for us to meet the requirements of the MSBA, as well as a special town meeting. There's also ballot question wording. I believe you have a hard copy of some wording in your packet. So if we could take a look at that as well. Before we do that, if we want to open it up to any and all questions that you have, we're happy to take those.
Yes. Do you have any questions?
No, I just need to get the ballot. There was a ballot question issue. I talked with council
Yep.
earlier today.
Okay.
I need to get something for that.
Okay, I have some questions, and I took notes for my questions, so, and our dates are 2/23, and what is the,
3-9.
3/9, okay. I did that wrong. Now, this is the 2013 submittal, and I do understand that process, and I recall when it came back, and we endorsed, moving forward and applying, even understanding this very strict scheduling that they have. So, you mentioned that the reimbursement rate for 2014 is 51%. Was it change every year?
So there's a possibility for it to change every year. As part of the feasibility study, they'll lock us into what the final reimbursement rate would be.
Okay.
What they have told us is you may see a point. So the actual reimbursement rate is 51.42 right now.
Okay,
So we may see it move a point up or down. There's also other ways to get additional points. So energy efficiency, being more green, you can earn a couple, being a model school, there are a couple of different ways to earn additional points. But we won't know the exact number, so we went with 51 because we're a little bit higher than that. And they said at most, you'd see it move a point one way or another.
okay. And it's based on what? It's based on what?
The MSBA.
Oh, okay.
And there's a
It's not
calculation
based-
that they have, and it's
Okay.
enrollment, and that there's other factors in it. So we don't anticipate that there's going to be anything that's going to change so drastically that would drive that number up or down significantly.
Okay, but it's not based on the fact that this is a 2013? Okay.
No.
And then- Was there anything additional in the 2014 application that wasn't included in the 13?
The 2014, so we had the Tetra Tech study that we had a public hearing and a public discussion. So we had a space needs study, and Tetra Tech came back, and they looked at the whole district. And because we had several years of being rejected for our Clyde Brown submittals, they suggested that we looking at a proposal, an SOI, for the middle school, high school. And so our 2014 SOI was based on the middle school, high school, and a renovation repair of the high school. So it's, the needs are still there, and we still will have needs in the middle school, high school. It's just that right now the funding is leading us to go back to the 2013 Clyde Brown project.
Okay, so you can't expand it to include what was in the 2014?
We've tried, and
Okay.
we've had numerous conversations. The superintendent and the town administrator have had conversations and calls with MSBA. We've tried. We've been the committee was on a conference call, and it has to touch that building. They're going to look at the district needs, but any and all construction will have to be in that building, or I should say, attached to that building.
Okay. And would that include moving it, potentially fifth grade go back? Okay.
Yes, that's definitely a potential.
Because right now, the fifth grade is presently in the middle school.
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay. And the MSBA funding or grant, however you want to call it, is a reimbursement, which means we do the outlay and then we get reimbursed? Or,
The way that they state that reimbursement works is that within 15 days of submitting what you need payment for, they will pay your money. So they actually have an online automated system that you go online and submit what the bill is. So we don't know yet the steps for feasibility study as we work out payment with the project manager or the design firm. We would have to figure that out.
okay.
But what they say is, they pay as we go. So as costs are incurred, they reimburse as costs are incurred. Their goal is that we don't have to pay up front and have a waiting period to be reimbursed from
Okay.
them.
So either way, if they're not going to pay direct, they're going to get it back to us within a very
They said
short
15
period.
days.
Yep.
They try to get things within 15.
All right. Get the whole slide done.
But the issue there on the reimbursement, Madam Chair, is that we have to reserve the full amount
Right.
of the 1 million. Right, so.
That's right.
And again, this reimbursement is only addressing the maintenance and repair of the structure, and if by chance some room comes out of it, that's the betterment, but you're not looking to add space to that structure.
No, the request, the $1 million feasibility study is to look at the whole district, then a focus on Clyde Brown, on both repairs and renovations. Actually, the way they look at it is repairs, renovations, replacement. And they present multiple options to you. And these repairs that we outlined would be part of that, but we're not limiting it just to the repairs. They're going to come in and do a study of the whole structure, the whole facility, looking at our enrollment, looking at the education, and then deciding what would best suit the district to help ease the burden on that building, and then additionally ease the burden on the middle school, high school.
Okay. And in one of your slides, you talked about the deliverables from this feasibility study, and one of them would be multiple options to address facility and educational needs. So I'm just trying to get an idea of what you mean by options. So do you think there would be an option that comes back and says, okay, to address your repair needs, this is option 1. To address your space needs, it's option 2, and then maybe option 3 is a combination of the two, or?
So that could certainly be it. I do think that we have some leeway to guide what we want the scope of the project to be up front. So our goal is to maximize the reimbursement. So we know that we have $4 million of cost that we have for hard systems that need to be replaced. The goal is to try and leverage this project to say, we know we have $4 million to spend. At a minimum, let's leverage the state to get $8 million worth of funds, let's say, out of this. So we're looking to try and address everything with through this project. I don't think that we'll be limited to an option with just repair, but we'll certainly see what the design firm and what the MSBA comes back with. The way the process works from the options forward is the MSBA takes feedback from the town, and then the town selects a preferred option, and then the MSBA has to approve that option. So if they don't see it as a viable option for short, medium, or long term,
Okay.
then they might come back to us and say, maybe revisit your selection.
Okay, so to kind of put that in a real situation, we may say, we just want to do repairs, and they're going to say, well, that's not really going to cover your long-term needs, so
Exactly.
therefore,
Exactly.
we wouldn't approve it unless it included maybe, expansion or,
It's hard to speculate on what these options will be.
Right.
But we know just from, that they'll all include repairs, right? Because those repairs have
Right.
to be done regardless. And then, we've done a lot of research on other schools, and it looks like they usually come up with 3 different options, and they present, and then there's a whole process of community involvement, and then eventually, like Denise said, you have to go back to the MSBA, and they are going to look at it's their money too, and they take pride in saying, we're going to watch our money and make sure that we're doing best for our money and the district.
okay.
The matter of fact,
Yeah,
the direction that the school committee is looking at right now is to do the repair and potential addition or some structure work, or, I mean, there's no, like, complete new structure or anything,
So
outlook you're looking for.
we haven't ruled anything in, we haven't ruled anything out. I think realistically, we're not looking at building a new school.
No.
Is that safe to say? Yeah, that's not something that we think is necessary or feasible, quite frankly.
But the feasibility
No.
study will address that.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. And that's the entire purpose of the feasibility study, is to look at all of those options and to be able to come back to say, here's why a new school is advised or not advised. Here's why repair renovation is advised, is not advised.
Okay.
So the team doing the feasibility study would go through that process.
okay, now, so the average cost of feasibility studies that are scheduled for 2015 is $900,000, but that the Clyde-Brown is larger in both size and in enrollment than any of those studies that add up to 900 or average 900. And I don't understand what you're saying there. Is that why you're at $1 million, or is that,
The feasibility study number, to be able to come up with it, some towns have used per existing square footage as part of their calculation. Some towns have used enrollment as part of their feasibility study evaluation, and some towns have used other towns as their way to get to their feasibility study number. What we did is try to use all 3. So we have more students, which means that our projected project would need more space, because MSBA also has a calculation for how much you should have how much space you should have per student enrolled. So we looked at each year from 2010 through 2015, what each town appropriated per square footage for a feasibility study. We also looked at it at what each town did per year, what the average was per year for the feasibility study. We spoke to the MSBA multiple times. There's no calculation, if you will, that was standard across the board to use as a reference. So we took the 15 schools that were elementary and pulled the number, and because we were significantly larger, actually, in square footage, so we're 66,000 square feet at Clyde-Brown, the lowest one prior to that is 45,000 square feet. So we didn't go in and say, it would have been higher if we actually took what that number was. So that's how we got to the $1 million.
and are you confident in them, because of that, are you confident in the million, or do you think it's,
We'll make it, we'll have to make it.
yeah,
work.
I'll make it
I mean,
work?
Yeah, and
There's really no other option.
yeah, and the only other, there's one project in the last 5 years that's been over $1 million for a feasibility study. It was Brookline, it was big, exactly. So, so we're comfortable with what that number is, based on what we've seen.
answered that question already. Okay, and then we'll look at the ballot questions. Anybody else have any questions?
I do not. Nope.
Nope. On the ballot question, and I understand what you're asking in terms of the special town meeting and the election. As for the ballot question, who drafted the ballot question?
So the MSBA has specific wording for how, they have a template where if you're going to go back for MSBA approval, you need to use the MSBA template. So we used the MSBA template, and also we're able to pull from, sorry, I'm just trying to get this on the screen for folks to be able to see. Also, we're able to pull from Hopkinton had a ballot question, and just their description of what a feasibility study was that happened to make it into a ballot question.
And then, and I know you have a comment on this, so do you submit, were you added to theirs? Does it go back to them just to get a, okay?
It will have to
Okay.
just, yes, so that they say, yes, this looks good, it won't run into any issues as you try and submit reimbursement.
Okay. And what are your,
Madam Chair, I sent this by bond counsel today and made some minor changes.
all right, so, shall the town of Millis be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2.5, so-called, the amounts required to pay for the bonds issued in order to undertake a feasibility study to consider options for renovations
The
and
description of the
additions
town address and the
to the Clyde Brown School? It gets rid of all the details.
So, and where's Nancy? In the MSBA documentation that we have, I believe, and this is something that we were still talking about as we were preparing earlier, that they require that we have a description of the feasibility study, the address of the location that it would be conducted at, and that there's notation of reimbursement by the MSBA. But that's something that we still do need to confirm.
Okay, so,
The address is correct. That should be in there.
okay, and then, well, and obviously the last sentence, for which feasibility study the town may be eligible for a grant from.
Right, because the MSBA's guidance document doesn't contain all of the descriptive information like land surveys, wetland surveys, preliminary site development plans in their base question.
So I believe Superintendent Gustafson spoke with the MSBA today. I just have one question for the board and for Mr. Aspinwall. I know that we have time limitations, and that initially we thought that the special election would happen a little bit earlier, which was driving the need to review and approve the ballot question wording tonight. Is this something that we need to confirm and vote on and receive approval on tonight? I just get the sense that we need to have one additional conversation with the MSBA potentially, just to make sure that we have the wording correct.
I think that would be a question for Ms. Harden, right? In terms of time frame. Our next meeting is January 26th. I don't know what that does for,
Yeah,
Doesn't work,
that won't leave us enough time.
Well, I wouldn't be against, if it came down to it.
We're just putting the meeting off 2 weeks, so you can only put off your decision 2 weeks, not 4 months.
that is,
You have to have a special,
yeah, and we can do that too, by the way. I mean, we can certainly have a special selectmen's meeting. Is that what you mean?
yes.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, I think it's important to get the ballot question exactly right.
Yes,
So
yes.
you have enough time for both the MSBA to review it, and then,
council.
once they approve it, have our town council approve it, just to make sure everything's correct.
But what you're doing here is where we don't go through this and approve it in any way. When you come to us, whether we have a special meeting in between the two, we're not going to be able to go back and then, so we'll have to have a
Right.
final,
Yes.
that everybody, bond council, town clerk, MSB, everybody
It will be
agrees is
final,
the,
Yeah.
correct, right.
Yep.
And I think the differences here are,
The description and the address on the last line.
35 days back to
description.
the 23rd of February, right?
Yes,
35 days.
35. Yep.
yeah, see, I think this option is very technical, whereas this option is just feasibility study and maybe it includes all of that.
The only comment bond counsel said was that this is the form that has been approved in 2 recent projects done by other communities that the MSBA also approved. That's the only,
Wait, what is the form?
the vote, the one that, in the memo you have before you.
The one from the town clerk, from Lisa.
To
Okay.
Lisa.
That's-
to
that's
Lisa,
And that's a
from the-
draft, in case you voted it tonight.
So
Okay.
do we have the option to approve this contingent upon review of the MSBA? So if we take this to the MSBA, the draft that Mr. Aspinwall passed out, approve it contingent upon approval by the MSBA? So if the MSBA comes back, they approve it, if you've approved it with a contingency tonight, is that an option?
I think we'll give you the 2, that you have the one and we have the one. Understood that on ours, you're going to add at the end of that, Clyde Brown School located at
7 Park Road.
7 Park Road, and if they need language in there about,
The description of the,
no, not the description of
The
the
reimbursement component?
reimbursement component.
Madam Chair, I think the other big issue between the two of them is that, you know, the one that Denise provided, or the school committee provided also, talks about replacement where this draft does not. So I think because this is about all options and not taking anything off the table, we want to make sure
Yeah,
that
okay.
the draft motion allows for that.
For the renovation, you wrote, yours has renovation or replacement. We have renovation and addition, so I think, what are you saying, repairs?
Renovations and repairs.
Well, I think there's a
think it
big
was
difference between addition
Addition and replacement, yep.
The notice of interest, the title to it was renovations and additions.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so renovations and additions.
Right, but I think that limits the scope, right? If the feasibility study comes back, which unlikely will say it needs to replace the entire school, that wouldn't be part. And that wouldn't even be part of the feasibility study. Or is it? I just don't know. Does it even impact it?
we'll look into
No,
that.
because this is the feasibility. This isn't the actual construction, this is just the feasibility.
No, I know, but what he's saying, he makes a very good point. So
We approve looking at
if you,
these, not at the replacement.
renovations and additions,
Does that limit them from even looking at?
replacement.
Yes.
So I don't know, but
Well,
if I had a preference, I go with whatever's on the statement of interest, right? In terms of what we requested. But,
Well, if there's time to
right.
meet the 35-day, you can,
All right, what's the 35-day back? We're going to get to your other items as well. I just thought we'd tackle that one first and perhaps defer.
It is the 19th.
The 19th?
That's 35 calendar days back from the 23rd to the 19th of February. Of January.
Well, that's
sorry.
why you said 2 weeks, because that's 2
Yeah.
weeks out, whereas the meeting's actually 3 weeks out. That's a holiday.
That's a holiday.
It's still a day.
Oh, I know, no, I'm
Right.
So, I mean,
19,
we're
18,
doing
19,
calendar days,
16.
right?
yeah, but just so we don't
Yeah.
try to schedule
Yeah.
something on
Yeah,
that.
but
Oh,
I'm
right,
not
right.
scheduled on the 19th.
No, but
Yeah.
if we needed to schedule something the week
By
of the
the
12th, we
16th.
could.
Yeah,
Okay.
In fact, we're meeting on the 15th, right?
no, we're not.
For the sewer study?
14th.
We're meeting on the 14th, right?
So we could come.
So we can add that to the agenda.
We'll put that on the agenda on the
Sorry,
Thank you.
Town council, just to let the board know, called me late this afternoon. I meant to speak with the chair about it, but also to require that the signatures on the settlement with the library, with BWC. He'd like to come in and talk to you about, go through that agreement. If we could also do that on the 12th.
14th.
I'm sorry, it's the 14th. I said the same thing.
Too many
14th.
days.
Okay, well, I don't-
If perhaps we could meet in the library first, earlier, go over a couple of things, and then retire to the auditorium.
It's reserved, the auditorium's reserved for 7, potentially. Start the meeting at 7:30 and meet at 7 or 6:30. We know, that's good. Put out there.
All right, the 14th is a Wednesday. That auditorium is scheduled at what, that meeting is 7:30?
7 o'clock. But the only thing that's scheduled about it is that I've reserved the auditorium for 7, so we haven't actually put it out there yet. So we can send something tomorrow.
right. These folks are also scheduled to present the Finance Committee on the 14th.
But there's 5 of us.
Yeah.
We can,
We'll be there.
This should be
We'll divide
pretty
and conquer.
fairly
We'll be
quick. Okay.
Right, right, because we
Is
should
that
have everyone's
7,
approval
7:30
prior to that.
committee?
7:30.
7:30, so
7:30?
potentially.
It should be a quick.
We could meet before.
7 PM, the 14th, in the library,
All right.
right?
Well, the sewer
14th
study
is the
would
sewer
be in
study
the auditorium.
meeting.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that just put us in a,
No, it's public.
yeah, the 7:30 in the auditorium. Oh, wait, what auditorium?
Auditorium.
High school auditorium.
Oh,
It's for the sewer study forum to
The sewer
review.
so the high school library, I was thinking that
what's
library.
table the sewer. That's what that is.
Okay, so that's how we'll come back around for that aspect. But before we talk about the special election, and before we talk about the ballot question, I just want to make sure that nobody else from the school committee has anything they'd like to add, or that anybody that's here tonight has anything that they would like to, anything they'd like to add. So I don't know, Ms. Gustafson or anybody else want to add anything? Okay. So, yep, sure, go ahead, Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Scott Fusey, 15 Stony Brook. I want to thank the school committee. I think it's a great presentation. It's no surprise that we're in this situation. The school's old. I went there in the late 70s. Probably parts of the building are still there when I went there. I think it's a necessary need. I think the feasibility study is good. I think it's about making the school building safe for the public, the staff, and obviously making Mr. Burns' staff's job a little easier with all the repairs and everything that need to be done. But I think it's making improvement, another improvement on a town building that desperately needs to be done. So I certainly would support it, and if it makes the building better, I guess let's start the process and get it done. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I do have one other question. I'm sorry.
Mr. Smith, and
I can wait if somebody else wants.
no, go ahead.
This is to either of you. You know, I think part of this, the repairs, I think is the concerning issue. Are any of these systems like about to die like tomorrow?
we had an interesting conversation at our December meeting, and the direct answer is not that we know, right? And we grilled Dave Byrne probably unfairly on multiple occasions, and, with the caveat being that they could die. But his feeling is, and his staff's feeling is that we're not at that point right now, but we're not far away. We're not trying to say it's going to happen next month or 2 months, but that's why we're using that time frame of and that's why Tetra Tech, and we're subscribing to the same time frame of that 0 to 5 years, right? We have a window of opportunity here.
No, I get that. I understand. I just wanted to make sure that within the time that it takes to do the feasibility study and then everything else, that you're not.
We did about a 15-minute conversation on that, going back and forth multiple ways. So no, we're not at that point just yet.
Mr. Smith, I'd just like to add, the roof is a problem. The roof has been an ongoing problem over at the Clyde Brown.
Sit there if you want.
So the roof is a problem. And I believe Mr. Byrne elaborated at the meeting that what happens is it's patched, water will migrate to another section, it'll leak there. And the roof's in terrible shape, so that can go at any point, I think. So that is an immediate need.
I'm not talking about immediate need. I'm just more concerned about something failing during this whole process, Sean. I'm not questioning the needs that have been.
Right.
I'm just more of a timing aspect. If we should be prepared for something to fail while this entire process is happening.
Well, I would, and Mr. Byrne can come up here and say it himself. I believe that the boiler is on a day-to-day basis, like most of us, but it's farther along than it's elderly. Let's put it that way. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. The roof's going to leak, but it's not going to cave in, okay? The boilers, like they were saying, you never know. I don't know when this building was commissioned, but it was after the Clyde Brown School, and the boilers in this building have been replaced, and we're still on older boilers. I have confidence that we'll make it. There may be a major repair we may have to make that won't break the bank, but we should make it through to a full renovation. That's why I wanted to start this process several years ago, because it takes a long time to get to when you put a shovel into the ground. Okay?
Thank you, Dave.
Okay.
Ma'am?
Loring Edmonds, Curve Street. I have comments and then I have a series of questions.
So I came tonight having read the Millis Middle School and High School Improvement Plan and the Clyde Brown School Improvement Plan as it relates more to operations than physical plant, the ones that are the most current. And in the Clyde Brown School Improvement Plan, section number 2 is titled Family and Community Engagement. So I was excited about that, because I thought, okay, they get it. I'm out here. I don't have kids in the school anymore. So I read the metrics for gauging community engagement. Email blasts to the families, staff use of newsletters, blogs, and other means of two-way communication with the Clyde Brown families, Clyde Brown Home Council goal setting, and stakeholders survey. I saw nothing about the larger community. So if this project is really going to be funded only by the Clyde Brown school families and those parents who received a note today, I believe, about tonight's meeting and about this project, then those are great. But I've stood before this body, I've stood at Town Hall on many occasions and implored what is apparently falling on deaf ears, the need for this town to develop a much more proactive, a much more inclusive, and a much more holistic approach to widespread communication with the entire citizenry, as we are all on the hook for the money that is at stake here. And it really feels to me, on day 206 of a 270-day process, like despite the milestones that were achieved, there was something really failing in the amount of information that was proactively disseminated and the amount of information that up to this night has been and is currently available through public media channels such as and including the town website.
And
one of the things that our community struggles with every election is how many overrides are there going to be. Now, we knew that this project or something thereabouts, when I say we, not me personally, but it was rumored that something was on the docket for Clyde Brown. But the
people in this room that drove this process and did a lot of work to get to this point could have
made this part of the discussion for the taxpayers during the fall election season, because nobody's mentioned the fact that we now have to fund an unfunded special election during the season when fewer voters are likely to come to the polls because they're not as engaged, it's not a driving election, and it's during
the New England winters. So that has an absolute statistical deterrent on the number of people who will participate, assuming that a
special election is a seemingly foregone conclusion for this project. And I really feel very badly
for the marginalized voters of this town who seem to always get overlooked and taken for granted, and who probably, those people who are on fixed incomes, are probably the most adversely affected. And then the whole notion of being thoughtful and deliberate and proactive about communication is not a new topic. We went through this with the police and the fire stations. We went through it back in the days when we weren't going to have busing funded. And then suddenly we found money for busing. So I don't see anything that shows us where we've taken our 2012 effort with the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission, where we did a whole study on how to attract, cultivate, and develop other sources of commercial revenue. And those of us who have just gotten our tax bills, or in my case, I had paid mine last year, we all know that local aid decreased. Our tax bills went way up for our property taxes. And the police and fire station projects have not even hit yet. I've never seen any of the numbers for a $1 million study at a $500,000 cost to the town. What does that mean for the taxpayer? What does that mean with before and after the police and the fire? Are we going to be increasing our CPA ratio from 1% to 3%, perhaps to spread some of the repair costs in different directions? We can't keep coming back to the same well, which is limited, without a parallel plan of developing a commercial tax base and without a more proactive and inclusive approach to communication. We shouldn't be rushing this through in the winter. This should have been available to us, holistically presented, back in the fall, when a press release went out from the state on June 4th, and people in this town knew that they had been pursuing this for 2 years. And I think it's very irresponsible of us to continue to not be thoughtful and not be proactive. And so I want to see harder numbers. I want to see a much more improved approach to communication. And I am looking to the selectmen and the town administrator who set both the philosophy and the operational practices of this town. We, the taxpayer, would like to know about the DPW garage, the middle and high school projects that now sit in abeyance, the police and fire stations, overrides or things that we don't know that are coming. Obviously, we've got repairs in the middle and high school that we need to address. So we want to make these decisions smartly, the way we budget at home, the way we look at the big picture, and then we can make educated decisions and priorities. But we can't do it when a project is held back. It just breeds mistrust and gives people a sense that they're not being dealt with fairly. And so I hope at day 206 that somebody will figure out that everybody should be communicated with, not just parents of school children.
Okay, I'm just going to address your comments briefly, because I think you said you had some questions, so.
Well, they were kind of folded in, I
Oh, well, I didn't catch them as questions, so I'm just going to address one thing. Now, you indicated that there was a press release on June something of 2014, which is when we understood that our 2013, and I'm going to ask Mr. Catalano to correct me if I'm wrong, but that's when we found out. We discussed this at length at a selectmen's meeting. I'm sure the school committee discussed this at length, and what I distinctly recall discussing here was that very short time frame and the fact that they had requirements about that. So we've discussed
Madam
that.
Chair, just to elaborate on that, we were very upset about the 270 days because we knew we were going to have to incorporate a special election and a special town meeting to account for that, because we asked to have that stretched out to the May town meeting and the May elections, where typically those are our biggest elections, but we were told no.
We actually made a special request to the MSBA to move it out, to not start on that date, but to start later, and they weren't allowed. So these things are consistently communicated, and the school building, correct me, Chris or Charlie, on the school building
Authority.
permanent building,
School committee building.
okay, school building committee, thank you. They have regular meetings, and they're posted.
Can I just add
Yes.
something, Madam Secretary? The school committee has had numerous conversations, and in fact, I just looked, and all of this information will be on the website that goes live tomorrow, that's available to all residents of the town. We've had 15 meetings since last April through right up until December, where this was discussed, and quite candidly, we were in two of our meetings in December we were going back and forth on what direction we were going to go. This was not a slam dunk. We want to engage the community as much as we can, and that's why we've scheduled 3 informational sessions. The only discussion that went out today was through the listservs. So to announce tonight's meeting and to announce the FinCom tomorrow, if we have access to a town listserv, we'd love to put something out as well, but we will publicize as much as we can the 3 informational sessions that are open to everyone, not just the parents of a student in the Millis Public School.
Now, can I ask you a question about that school listserv? Is that limited only to parents of students, or can anybody join that listserv?
I think anyone who can access the website can sign up. There's no restriction. So anyone who wants to sign up for any of the 3 listservs, the middle school, high school, and then also the Clyde Brown, they can do that. So just wants to reiterate, 15 meetings that we've had where this has been discussed. A couple of them were off camera. They were on working sessions, but they're all open to the public. And there'll be a link to all the meeting videos that are going to be available online tomorrow.
Steve, just one
Yes.
follow-up question there. When did the school committee determine to proceed to go forward with this?
Well, we had a discussion in May when
ultimately to go forward with this plan here. No, not the May. I mean, did you make a determination?
When was kind of the final decision?
Yes.
December.
December.
While we were meeting milestones, because there was no cost to the town, we were pursuing. We wanted to keep numerous times all options open, right? And then at the same time that we're having these very detailed conversations about how to proceed, the state comes back and says your 2014 SOI was rejected. And so then we're at the point of, well, now what do we do? Do we leave money, the possibility of money on the table, or do we pursue it? And that was a decision made at the December 16th meeting.
In what year?
14.
You have a 270-day calendar that started in June. It was announced that the process started in June. So I would respectfully debate that.
The thing that everybody has to understand, and I do have a question, Andrea, but the thing that people have to understand is that not everybody can attend or necessarily catch the loop of a videotaped committee meeting, and that the people who do that work, and we respect and understand that you volunteered and stood forward. I volunteer for a whole host of things. Maybe it's videotaped, maybe it's not. But not everybody can do that. There are other means of unused communication, and I would ask everybody on any committee to go and look at what is considered an archive of their work. Because if you go, I've searched, believe me, I've spent a lot of time on this and done a lot of research. I've spoken to the MAPC. I have spoken to the MSBA. I have read everything that is available on this before I came to this meeting tonight. It is not through lack of effort on my part, and I'm coming up short. So what I'm saying to you is you have to assume the lowest common denominator of familiarity with the process. There are so many billboards that are sitting on our cable TV that just say, today is F Day, don't forget to bring your lunch, or whatever. Things like that could be used all the time. We don't use what we have. The minutes and notes, something that just says, we discussed the MSBA project, that is not an archive. That does not educate somebody like me who cannot attend. And I would suggest that I'm probably in the majority. I doubt everybody sits at home every day and times their cable just right when there's no directory on it to know exactly when they can proactively, let's say, DVR, depending on what's on their agenda. I canceled something to come tonight. So I think it's not fair to say to people, we had 15 meetings. That's what you signed up for as a volunteer. But the piece that I object to is the failure to communicate in front of and immediately thereafter. We're at day 206. This is crazy that we're slamming this schedule together now. And frankly, I don't think we should be funding. We should have looked at this and put this in the context of the fall electoral cycle, which you had plenty of front time. That water is over the dam. It's counterintuitive in my mind to spend money to ask to spend money. That doesn't make any sense. It just, philosophically, it doesn't make any sense. But I do have a question about if, kind of beyond the, and one of the things that I have never heard is what is the cost to the taxpayer? I haven't heard what is the cost to the taxpayer that's going to hit with the police and fire, and what is the cost to the taxpayer of this, and when does it hit? And then if we go through a feasibility study, and in the end, our town, what is the process of deciding A, B, or C, and does our commitment to this funding source obligate us to continue for an eventual project, and what happens to these other projects?
Okay, you have a lot of questions.
I know, I
Let's
do.
just let's just, first of all,
Right.
you want to know the amount of money that this request is going to add to the tax bill. You say you haven't heard the police fire one, that one's been out there. In your prior commentary, you mentioned something about a middle school, high school project. There is no middle school, high school project. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I think that was part of the beginning of the presentation wherein they said they submitted an SOI, but it was rejected. So that
But
the
that
police
doesn't-
fire, hold on, the police fire number is out there for your tax bill. So I get that question, okay? How much does this add to my tax bill? Fair enough.
But the middle high school project that they did submit an SOI means that there is a need. So just because it's not being funded right now through this means does not, in fact, unless I understand, it didn't go away, right? It's still, there's some need there.
I think that, all right, I'm just going to cut you off there because I think they already addressed it, okay? You addressed it when I asked that question about the 2014 SOI versus the 2013, if you don't mind just reiterating that.
So effectively,
But again, microphone.
the 2014 SOI establishes that we have space problems, spacing issues at the middle school, high school. The issues around the systems at the middle school, high school are not as extreme and urgent as the ones in the Clyde Brown, but it was mainly the complete and utter lack of space in the middle school, high school. And so we would be going through the same process. We'd be going through the process of getting to this point and asking for a feasibility study, and we'd be saying that the feasibility study would be looking at middle school, high school, opposed to, it'd be looking at the district, but it would be a project at the middle school, high school. So it's not much different. It's just that they picked the Clyde Brown. They went back to our 2013 SOI. And we have needs in both schools.
Okay, but I think what she's saying is that, or she's asking, is that, well, if we do the whole 2013, now we still have a problem over at the middle high school. And I thought that your response before with respect to perhaps this is going to include moving the fifth grade back down, that at least would be part of it. Maybe it doesn't solve all the problems, but at least it tries to.
That would absolutely help alleviate some of the problems at the middle school, high school, if we could move the fifth grade back.
And
We
nobody's
stated
saying
that-
we're doing that, we're just saying that's part of it.
And we did state that clearly in our SOI in 2013, and they didn't specifically take that out. That's on the table to look at through the feasibility study.
Okay.
So what about the DPW garage? What else is on the horizon? You all are in the know on this, and we're not. And I think that's what feels very unfair, that we're making these really important decisions that are important for the town, and we don't have all the information against which to prioritize, and there's only so many resources.
And I think what you're asking us to do is you're asking us to be, fortune tellers and tell you what's going to happen 2 years from now and what we're going to be seeking. We don't necessarily know that.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I think maybe I'm not in the know because I don't know of anything with the DPW garage. Mr. Aspinwall, is there anything?
No, as DPW director, I have not proposed any project to the board.
See, so, I mean,
That's how this felt back in the fall, though. When we were discussing the fields,
yeah.
part of, I believe, my own estimation, part of what happened with the fields was a referendum on communication, and part of what happened on the referendum, part of it was what else is coming. We kind of want to make sure that we're prioritizing the right thing.
This project was absolutely discussed as part of the fields, that it was possible that number was fitted into the possible debt issues coming forward. This was there.
But this could have been on the table in the fall.
No, it couldn't
No,
have
no,
been.
Why?
The dates did not precipitate that to be known before the December 14th date that you were notified?
We were meeting milestones through
Yes.
that.
There was,
Through that
the
process.
whole 200 and whatever day process, okay, required a number of milestones
Right,
to
I understand,
meet
I understand
each
that.
time.
Yep.
And I remember initially discussing, are we going to make that September milestone? And so each month, there was no way to meet all those milestones and get a response back in time for November, which is why from the very beginning, we discussed we knew the date of March 16th was when it was required, and we also knew that we probably wouldn't know whether or not it was something we could do until about December. And I know the presentation has the milestones that were achieved. A meeting in October, the facilities maintenance plan submitted in December. I mean, these things that have been worked on throughout this entire time and finally submitted couldn't have been done before November.
And then, Madam Chair, to address your other question, that this isn't just throwing money at a project to find out how much money we're going to spend. Every one of our projects, we had to do it with the library, we did it with this building, we did it with the police fire, requires the expertise of what do you need, what are the needs requirement, versus just going out with the expertise or the lack of expertise that we have in-house. Oh yeah, build a building. Well, that would not be wise on our part, just to build a building because they have a need. If they can go out, get the expertise, see the feasibility to rebuild or regenerate that building that we are in currently right now. And that currently that is, at least with the library and with the police, that is part of the requirement of those additional funds to go through this process. You can't go to the state to ask for those additional funds without going through this process first. So it is not just throwing money to see how much money we're going to spend further on the renovation.
Well, I don't think I didn't say throwing money at anything. I really want to be heard, and I really want to see the people who have the information to understand that it's not just the parents of kids in school who are paying for something, and therefore it is incumbent upon you to be extremely broad-based in how frequently and how thoroughly you inform, educate, and excite the electorate, or we are going to end up just spinning our wheels, which I think would be a shame. People need to understand what's before them, and I think our town has a very strong history of failure to communicate to the electorate.
One additional comment. As far as communication, all these meetings, including the school committee, are also streamed on the web's Millis cable, so you can bypass the Millis live cable and go onto the streaming and download all these meetings.
What are you saying, that I can just go on and say I want to watch the Board of Selectmen's meeting from January 5th? And
Yep.
Oh, okay. So they're streamed.
So you don't have to wait just for this evening's meeting.
I didn't even know that. I probably did. Yes. Unfortunately, I have to ask you to use the microphone.
But did you bring a gavel tonight, Mr. Moderator?
Thank you. I'm Jim McCaffrey. I'm the moderator of the town. I believe I'm the only person in the room who actually, 24 years ago, was on the Town Administrator Selection Committee. So I take partial responsibility for what we've been left with. And I'm really not here to talk about the merits, just another anecdote. My youngest daughter was among the first group that went over to the Clyde Brown School after its renovation, and she's 31. So it's been a while since we did this project, and I think that that's really important for everybody to keep in mind. But I do want to talk a little bit about what I consider to be sort of the integrity of the process. In 2005, we amended the charter to permit a second annual town meeting, as it were, one in May and one in November. The reason for that was because there were so many things going on in terms of uncertainties of budgets, we couldn't really guarantee that we'd be able to deal with all those issues in one meeting a year. And calling a special town meeting is not a trivial thing. There's costs associated with it. There's the need to get everybody's attention. There's the group you draw. Is it the same group? But we felt pretty strongly that we needed another benchmark, another stop along the road, because there's so much uncertainty in the system. Well, obviously, there's always uncertainty in the system. And we've sort of caught in that particular bind at this point in time, it seems to me. Now, since we have adopted the two-town meeting methodology, we've only had 2 special town meetings in 10 years. Doesn't mean that what we did over the last 10 years is what we should do in the next 10 years, but it's important to note. Each one of those, well, neither of them were called to appropriate funds. One was, in fact, called to return funds because of a miscalculation of the way the reimbursement worked on the Clyde Brown School originally, and the other was some shortfall in revenue from the state, because when the state came along with its actual numbers, we didn't have enough, and we were able to fund that from reserve funds and whatnot. Mr. Smith is shaking his head yes, because he was involved in both of them as well as a member of the Finance Committee. So it's important to note that what you're asking the town to do today is, in a sense, unprecedented. Calling a special town meeting and calling a special election to appropriate significant funds. And with due respect, doing it 8 weeks after the last town meeting was held, where over 400 people came to vote on the issues which they thought would be dispositive of the rest of the agenda for the town for this fiscal year. Doesn't mean it's right or wrong, it's just a fact. Now, I do think that there is a risk in doing this from a procedural point of view, because what it's doing is it's putting this very important issue sort of out of sync, if you will. And I'm not trying to be the history professor here, but if you look at the record of elections, it's not by a lot that these things pass. We've only had 2 elections, 2 special elections on override issues in the 10-year period that I'm talking about. One of them was actually held the same day as the state election to replace Senator Kerry. So it was a special election, but it was held when an election was being held. That was for the police and fire. There were 2,269 votes cast that day. And the proposal won by 5 votes. It's a fact. I mean, once you get into this dynamic, you don't know where you're going to go. And that's why I'm talking about the risk here. The other time we held a special election was an actual special election. That was in September of 2005. And that special election was held for the first library construction project, which was not passed. Now, there were 1,208 votes cast that day, and the proposal lost by 22 votes. So these elections are going to be very close, no matter how you cut it. In all the overrides that we've done, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, 21 votes out of 2,379. The new fire truck, 5 votes. Somehow the library, with all due respect to the library team, won by 281 votes, a virtual landslide, if you will. So it's important to ask them how they did it, I suppose. What I'm raising for the audience today, really, for those of you in the room and those of you at home, is that when you take these steps, from a procedural point of view, you raise additional risks. They may be risks well worth taking, but they are risks because people will perceive that it's out of sync, it's not part of the structure that we established. Now, we can blame the state, and that's great. And if you can't blame them, then let's blame the federal government. That's the other good one. But the fact of the matter is that people will be concerned that they're being asked to go out of the usual cycle. They're being asked to come to special meetings. And it's really important that we assess the risk as to whether or not this will lead more likely to get community support or not. I don't know the answer to that. I'm just trying to, remember for everybody's purposes here what's happened over the last 10 years since we set this process in place for 2 meetings a year. Now, I understand clearly from the presentation that the state is mandating some process here, which has gotten this out of sync. Now, if the Board of Selectmen, and it's the board that decides whether we're going to do this or not whether it's going to win, but whether we're going to raise it in this way, is obviously going to be reacting to some necessary deadlines that are being imposed upon us. But I do want us to think for a moment about the risk of it failing. If this adds to the possibility that it might fail, I'm talking about an override vote, what's the fallback position? Then what do we do? Because clearly if it fails, you've missed the March deadline, and then you're going to be pushed into the new cycle, whatever it may be. We have a new governor, we have a new legislature. I don't know what's going to happen. Nobody does. But I'm really standing here today to ask questions about the risk. We have to assess the risk. We have to decide whether it makes sense. And then if we're going to take the risk and propose these to people, to the point that I've made earlier, it's really incumbent upon us to make it clear not only what this step means, but what this step means for the next step and the next step. So that's what I wanted to sort of add to the conversation. I think the one last point I would make, and most of you, I think, were there at the town meeting. I have the rare privilege of watching the town meeting in addition to participating in it. And we can speculate as to the dynamic of that meeting. But by the time we ended that meeting, there was a lot of no votes in the room. No votes for the Fields proposal, no votes for the sewer proposal, no votes for the computer, which clearly got caught up in the dynamic of the sense of the room being, it's time to say no. So please take those thoughts into consideration. Doesn't change your vote necessarily, but if you think about it that way, perhaps we come up with a good solution and set upon a plan over time, and the time could be 6 weeks, I'm not saying it's 6 years, to make sure that this urgent issue is addressed successfully. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Smith?
I think that's very well thought out issues and concerns that the moderator has. Ideally, I don't think we wanted to be in this time frame right now and out of cycle on things, but the way things had other, the statement of interest for the 2013, we were initially denied. And then when the other towns failed to meet, that wanted to go through the process, couldn't go through, they brought us in, they invited us into the process. And that set in this chain of events here that totally takes us out of sync of our town meeting schedule. And we tried to fix that, we really did, and it was just straight out no. So at this point, if we don't go through with a special election and a special town meeting, then it's the same as it is failing. It's just off the table. It's not something that's going to be revisited in May or November until we're invited back into the process, which could be
never. Or it could be next year. I mean, we just don't know.
No, we already got, they already
Oh, no,
informed
it'd be
us.
for 2015.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's one. I understand all those concerns. I understand the risks there. I understand what the climate was in the room back in November. But I think at this stage, not going forward with the plan is the same thing as voting no for it. And I don't think that would be fair for us to vote no on this project when another elected group is asking us to bring this before the electorate.
And what is being asked to bring forward is the opportunity to have somewhere in the neighborhood of 51.4 to 51 point something percent reimbursement of costs that maybe not tomorrow, but may need to be incurred regardless. So,
And that's without discussing any of the merits of it, right?
Correct.
That's just the process.
it's a question, I think it's a question for me, is do we put it out there with the hope that we would get for something that is eventually going to be needed 51% of our costs back, or not do it and just hope that some future year the MSBA accepts our yearly proposals or yearly requests, and they do it on time. And they do it at the beginning so that we don't have to go through this process. Anybody else? Ms. Hard?
Lisa Harden, 56 Walnut Street. I would like to thank Jim McCaffrey and Lauren Edmonds for their thoughtful comments. I think we do need to address the issues they brought up. But I have a question about the time frame of this feasibility study. Assuming that we go forward and it's passed and the deadline of March 16th is met, when would we actually see the completed study? How long is that? And then how much time do we have to decide whether or not we're going to pick A, B, or C, and then how do we fund that, and we need to project a little bit how much that is, whether it's that 8 million or some other amount, just so that the townspeople can have some idea of what might be coming down the pike. And I think we do need to realize that the DPW garage does have issues. It's been talked about for several years, and just because there's no plan right at this second to do something about it doesn't mean that it's not something that's out there. Just like at home, you know that the roof leaks over the garage, you know, and it's not something you have to do anything about this year, but it's coming. And I think the Selectmen should be the group to do some kind of long-term planning, and if you don't want to do it yourselves, maybe you should have a committee to do it, because somebody in the town needs to be doing that kind of thing so that we do know what's coming. Because if every year we get asked for another $1 million, it adds up. And you can't just keep going back to the same well all the time. And a lot of people don't have incomes that keep going up. So anyway, my short-term question is the time frame of this whole thing, and the other thing is I think the town does need to do some kind of long-term planning. Thank you.
As for the time frame, if you could please get, I know you already went over it, but if you could go over, I guess, what is to come from this?
The process is 12 to 18 months. That would be from the start to the finish, and I think that includes some of the community outreach, or is the community outreach on top of that?
So they estimate the feasibility study itself will take between 12 to 18 months to go through that entire process of looking at those factors that we talked about earlier, all the school needs, the district needs, whatnot. We have those design options that come out of that process. From approving the feasibility study, if the town decides to go forward down that path, it does not commit us to any other future spend from a town perspective. So once the feasibility study process is complete, there are schematic design options that are then presented. So feasibility study alone can take 12 to 18 months. At the close of that, then we take the options out to the community. The community would have feedback. Those pieces go back to the MSBA for their, so we have a preferred approach at the end of that process. We'd bring that to the MSBA. They would decide, yes, we approve, no, we don't. At that juncture, then the town decide, there's another vote as to whether or not we would go forward with that MSBA-approved approach. So there's still...
I think the question, Denise, we go through, let's say we go through this feasibility study, does it start a clock saying, okay, this feasibility study is good for X number of years, or...
No. There's no day limit.
There's no limit.
Okay.
There's no limit, right. They have
Anywhere
estimates.
from 18 months to two years
Yep.
for the whole process to get to the point of another vote, because that is, they require another election and another town meeting to decide if we are going to go forward.
Is there a time frame on that, though?
Not until the close of the feasibility study. So when we start the feasibility study, there's nothing that says feasibility starts on January 1st, 2015.
Yeah.
And by December 31st, you need to have feasibility study done and vote taken. So feasibility study period is open. There's no requirements for how long or how short it has to be.
Okay.
And there are no additional voting requirements in the feasibility study period.
Right, but...
Until we get to the point of the community outreach and the MSBA, and then getting to the point of a preferred.
So once the feasibility study is done, that process is done, when is the deadline for the next vote?
We won't know. We don't know. There's a...
Is it a certain number of months or years or anything?
We'll have to look into that. I don't believe it.
I think that, I'm
There is.
pin down what it is.
Yeah.
But, when the feasibility is completed, it starts another clock ticking.
It's the MSBA votes.
After the MSBA votes
That's
on
when,
an approach.
Yeah, okay.
that's
So-
when the clock starts ticking at that
Oh,
point.
okay.
Yes.
So,
So after the town selects their preferred approach, then the MSBA approves the town's preferred approach, then at that point, the clock starts ticking as far as how long the town has to appropriate the funds to pay for the preferred approach.
Okay, right.
Yep.
And then, Madam Chair,
Yes. Mr.
just
Smith?
on the subject of long-term capital planning, I do believe the town administrator does review each year during the budget cycle a long-term capital plan across all departments and what current requests are and then what potential future requests are through a number of years. Charlie, is that 10 years out?
In some cases, it goes out to 2030, Madam Chair.
But if we need to do a better job of showing that and communicating it, I think we can look at that.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. We can go over it. We do usually go over it in a selectmen's meeting. It's usually gone over in a finance committee meeting, but we could have an extra one. As for the DPW garage, there's nothing going on at the DPW garage. I don't know what that is about.
Up here then, if there's no problem down there.
Because we moved them up here. There's nothing going to be, not temporarily.
Madam Chair, I will tell you that every building we have leaks. Mr. Byrne has had leaks at his schools. We've had leaks here in the Memorial Building. We're not going to move everyone out because we had a leak in the roof. We get it repaired, and it gets fixed. There was a leak at the DPW garage last year with the snow and ice that occurred, and it was repaired this year. So we repair things. We don't go out and build a building because a roof is leaking. You repair the leak. In terms of a long-term capital repair, in size of facilities down there, there's a need for a shower area for the guys. There's a need for some smaller type projects in there, but nothing capital intensive. Otherwise, it would be on the schedule. I'd be deficient unless I didn't put it on there. In terms of growth, what we're seeing in terms of our long-term pension liability is we're moving toward contracting out, quite frankly, because we can't afford the pension liability. So in terms of the DPW, there's no long-term building project that's been proposed. There's not been one that's discussed. And in my opinion, right now, there's not one that's needed. Madam Chair, if I could I'd like to use one other word that I haven't heard a lot of tonight, and that is opportunity. One way to look at this is, it puts us off our schedule. This is not a schedule we asked for. It's not a schedule we wanted. It's a schedule we tried to change. We were told no. In fact, we were told if we pushed it, that they would move on to another town. That would eliminate our opportunity to present to the voters a possibility that some capital improvements that we need over the next several years could be funded 51% by the state. That's an opportunity, I think. And I'd just ask people to consider that as well.
Thank you. Anything else? I'm not, sorry. I look and there's people behind people and I say, okay, and everybody thinks I'm talking to them.
Wendy Berry, 6 Paddock Lane. I'm glad you brought up the opportunity because all I keep hearing in my brain as I'm sitting here is opportunity cost, and I think it would be a big miss for the selectmen not to pass this on to the voters to choose as a community, whether to pass up and incur the opportunity cost of missing funds that we may or may not have to incur anyway to solve some, impending problems that Mr. Byrne was talking about at the schools. And so I would urge you to pass it on to, the electorate that can decide to educate themselves or not educate themselves, show up at the, to vote or not show up to vote. But that's all something that moving it forward can allow everybody to choose what to do.
Thank you. All right, anything else?
Procedurally, what do we need to do to move forward?
Scott?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Scott Fusey, 15 Stony Brook. There's been talked about information in town. A lot of these meetings are open to the public, and I think the town, in my opinion, has always done a fair job at posting things and notification and informational meetings. I've been to several of them, so I think, the school board meetings are always open to the public. So, I just urge people, if they're listening or here, just to go to them and voice your opinion, and that's what it's about. But I think the town overall, over the years, has done a good job as far as getting the information out to the public that it needs to get out. So, thank you.
Thank you, Scott. You know, right, so I just do this, I just do motion to hold a special election on for the purpose of a motion to hold a special town meeting on, and then, this wouldn't be a motion, that would just be,
We have to say what the special.
yeah, yes, I'm sorry, yeah, yes.
Feasibility study for Clyde F. Brown Elementary School, that would suffice.
We'll call it the MSBA project. Or, yeah, whatever that says, so,
Why don't we just say the MSBA
Undertaking.
project for the feasibility studies?
Madam Chair, you're definitely meeting on the 14th?
yes, and so, at this point, there have been requests by the school
Right.
committee, 3 requests to the Board of Selectmen, one being to, whether or not we would hold a special election. Are you saying that we should defer that to the 14th as well?
My advice would be for you to ask the school committee to finalize the question and have that before the 14th, have it for your packet for the 14th, and then vote on it on the 14th.
The only thing I'd like to have it communicated whether or not there would be a special election.
Right.
And
Yeah, I think the wording of the
a
question.
town meeting.
The wording of the question is not, of course it's relevant, but it's not relevant to determine whether we're going to have a special election or a special town.
Right, adopting adopting a ballot question, I think, if you have the sense that you would like to vote to have a special election with the ballot question to be determined, I think certainly that.
Oh, and we weren't going to make it, we weren't going to use those words. We were going to say the same thing.
Okay.
Yes. So, TBD.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Smith?
I move that the Board of Selectmen hold a special election on, I lost my dates now, on February 23rd, 2015.
Wait. Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Special election on February 23rd, 2015, for the purpose of participating in a feasibility study with the Mass School Building Authority for the Clyde F. Brown School project, with the ballot question to be determined.
The special election. I'll second that.
Okay,
Well, the
and so what
spec-
is your,
I'd have to defer to the town clerk if you're voting to hold a special election, but not determining what the ballot question is going to be officially yet.
We need to know the 35-day requirement is for us to get ballots. So
Right.
The 35 days is what we need the exact wording of the question, so we can send it out, get ballots.
Right.
And you'll have that
You
on the
can announce
14th.
today that there's going to be a special election, which is fine. And then, say on the 14th, you can let me know what the wording is. That would be the 35-day requirement.
Right.
see, I just don't want, the reason why I want to do these 2 votes now, and you can talk me out of it, is because I don't want to wait till the 14th to, it's not going to be, that meeting won't be televised. That meeting's going to be in the library.
Right.
So I don't want to, in the spirit of whatever, we don't communicate. I'd like to communicate that this is our intent, this is, if we voted this way.
I think the way the town clerk put it, announcing that there would be a
That's
special
fine.
election, and then with the ballot question to be finalized on the 14th, I think is,
All right.
but calling the election right now, definitively calling it is problematic, I think.
So modify,
Well, then it wouldn't even be a motion, it would just be an announcement that we intend to hold a special election on the 23rd. Right, you don't want any motion at this point. Why? Because it's difficult to, in case something changes between now and the 14th.
Well, Madam Chair, I think you need to stay away of calling the election. You can announce your intention to call the election, but specifically calling the election then
Without the wording.
puts the wheel in process without really knowing what the question is. So if you vote to announce the
Motion to declare intent to, something like that.
It's not going to stop any of your processes, right?
No.
All right, and it's, all right.
No, I would like it, if we are, because we haven't voted yet, so I don't really know how that vote's going to go, but I would like to be declared whether or not, and in some way, so declare intent maybe.
A
To
vote
hold.
To declare a special town.
Right. Well, I think at this stage, then, I think that we would probably want on the 14th, is the sewer portion of that meeting, is that televised in the
Yes.
auditorium? That is, sorry, so we should have.
Pending that they can get a film crew, but it looked like they were going to.
Okay, so maybe that we also put this discussion as well in the auditorium and have it televised additionally, I think would make sense.
That's fine.
All right, so I rescind my motion, Madam Chair, and I'll make a new motion to declare the Board of Selectmen's intent to hold a special election on February 23rd, 2019, for the purpose of
No, just to
15.
be
15.
determined.
Wow, really looking into the future here.
for the purpose,
Just,
for the Clyde F. Brown School project and the feasibility study. That's the intention of it.
I'll second that. To declare
Intention.
intention.
it's been moved and seconded that the Board of Selectmen do declare their intention to hold a special election and town meeting
Just the election. Town meeting will be the second one.
For purposes of the Clyde Brown Elementary School MSBA project. The details of which to be determined? The details? The ballot question for which, the ballot question to be determined on January 14th, 2015. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Smith. I wouldn't even do that.
I move to declare the Board of
No, I
Selectmen.
wouldn't even, I think that one we can do on the next
The
event.
town meeting?
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's fine then. I can live with that. That's fine.
Mr. McCaffrey,
Madam Chair,
I'll repeat your question.
in terms of the special, be hopeful to let people know that obviously there's going to be one, if there is going to be one, and when the warrant opens, and when it closes, and particularly if in that window something else were to pop up. Would there be a possibility of other articles? It's a rhetorical question, but I think it's important just to make sure that we've got those bases covered in terms of opening and closing the warrant and defining the issues.
Okay.
We'll actually, of course, need a warrant article.
Yes, you're right. And we will have to word that. And so the question from the audience, from Mr. McCaffrey, is, more specifically, when would a warrant open and when would the warrant close? Just so people understand what is actually part of that town meeting and election. So I don't know, I'll defer to you. Or to Lisa.
I think the requirement for a special election to have everything prepared, is it 2 weeks
2
prior?
weeks prior?
14 days.
14 days.
14 days prior, right, which would bring it, what did we say, the 9th?
23rd.
That's the 23rd.
Right, so 14 days.
So it's 14 days exactly.
So on the 23rd, we would have to have the communication out as far as the notification and the in the article?
You're talking about on February
No.
23rd.
February 23rd is the...
No,
When
we're
you-
talking about the town meeting. No, we're not talking about the election.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I know, but you said election, Chris.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's getting late. I'm sorry. So the special town meeting on the 9th, we have 14 days to communicate that, right? And have everything done?
Which ninth, I just want to be clear on which ninth
March.
you're talking about. There's 14 days between February 23rd and March 9th.
Right, but for the special meeting on the March 9th, we have a requirement to have,
The warrant closed.
Mailed.
Warrant would have to be posted on the night of the 23rd.
on the night of the 23rd. Right, so that the article would
So-
have to be part of that on the 23rd.
Yes. So if you opened warrant on the
On the 19th. Oh, the 26th were...
no, well, it could be the 26th, but
Yeah.
when's the sewer meeting? I'm sorry.
No, 14th
14th,
Of,
January.
next week.
so if you opened it then, you could have it open until, for a couple of weeks, and then,
Do we have to have it open for a couple of weeks, or can we just open it and close it with the one question?
We can
I don't
open
know
it
the
and
answer to
close
that.
it. We can open it and close it. We'll probably keep it open for a short period of time and close it.
It would be uncustomary.
Not to keep it open
But
for a short period.
The board makes the determination, unless there's a petitioned article, what goes on the special town meeting warrant. So even if someone submitted something in those 2 weeks, you could decide, you could decline to put it on, unless it's petitioned.
It could go on the warrant, but we could decline to put it on the ballot. It won't make a ballot.
No, it doesn't have to go on the warrant if you decline to not put it on the warrant.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of time. We still have plenty of time.
So in all likelihood, what we would hope to achieve is that at that meeting on January 14th, which will be televised, we will hopefully start at 7 PM. We'll have to get, I guess, special permission to start at 7 PM and have it televised from the high school auditorium. This issue, the ballot question, and hopefully we can open the warrant on that date in the event we proceed and have that warrant article.
Andrew, it is currently scheduled for 7 PM.
It is.
But we had talked about meeting in the library prior, so I said, if that's the case, then we'll have it at 7:30.
Okay.
But we can, if you're going to meet right in the auditorium, we have the auditorium at
We'll
7
do
all
that.
booked.
Okay.
We're just trying to make sure we have a film crew.
Yes.
Is that what I speak here?
If it's something I can repeat.
On the subject of outreach and spreading the word out, this, I just wanted to encourage the selectmen to make sure that the minutes are updated on the website. I just checked the minutes just during the meeting to sort of see. I think a lot of people don't have time to sit through this. I commend you all for your patience and sitting through all of these meetings. But I think the general public, as this woman next to me addressed, you signed up for this, but the general public isn't going to sit through every selectman meeting, and to say that they're televised is not exactly public outreach. I think a lot of people will look for what happened at the meeting in the minutes. And the most updated minutes for the selectmen are December 3rd. For the school committee was November 19th, and that's tonight at this meeting I'm checking.
But we haven't met since December 3rd.
We met once.
It's all right. We're not making excuse. I'm going to repeat your issue. So the request from the floor was to make sure that our minutes are updated. And for each of these things, the school building committee as well as the selectmen, and we do have requirements. They are kept up to date. Middle to end of December is kind of rough for getting all that kind of stuff together, but nonetheless, Ms. Vecchi? You know what, I hate to do this to you, but I'm going to ask you to use the microphone just because I can't
I don't mind using the microphone.
I know.
Susan Vecchi, Walnut Street, also Finance Committee, and I just want to point out that you are televising a meeting on the 14th, which is also a Finance Committee meeting, which should be televised, which will be the school presentation and other budget presentations. So we have dueling meetings going on. So I just want to point this out because there is need to have both of those things televised.
Fair enough. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, Madeline just came in from cable and said that they are not able to televise the meeting on the 14th until 7:30.
We'll take care of that first at 7:30 then. That's fine. And I'm sure she knows about that issue that was just presented with regard to the Finance Committee. God bless you. All right. Anything else on this subject? Thank you. Thank you. Next on the agenda, which is also extremely interesting, would be the library budget presentation. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Where is he? Oh, yes, absolutely. Before we do that, and perhaps while you set up or just get ready, we're going to do item number 15005, which is the appointment of a Council on Aging's van driver, Mr. Aspinall.
Madam Chair, the Council on Aging Director has recommended that the town administrator appoint and the board approve the appointment of Robert Daly as a van driver for the Council on Aging. Bob served for many years, has already served the town for many years, and he's coming back for more. And I want to say thank you to Bob again.
You know what? Honestly, Mr. Daly, I can't believe he didn't leave, but okay.
And I hereby appoint, subject to your approval, Bob Daly, subject to a query and a physical, for a van driver position at the COA.
Okay, I don't know if you want to say anything. You don't know.
I have nothing to say.
All right.
I'm sorry, good. Bailey?
Daly.
Bailey.
Sir.
Madam Chair?
He's Corey did two bets already.
So just the
Okay.
physical?
Just the physical. Have you had your physical yet?
No, next week I get that. I got my stuff in the registry today, and CPR, I don't know, she has to set CPR up for me.
Yeah, I think she can do that.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Smith?
I move that the Board of Selectmen do approve the town administrator's appointment of Robert Daly to the position of Council on Aging, is it driver?
Yep.
Driver subject to a physical.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the town administrator's appointment of Bob Daly as a driver, a van driver with the Council on Aging, subject to a physical. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for hanging out for this evening, too.
It was interesting.
Feeling you were here for that.
I'm so sorry that the library budget presentation doesn't. I'm going to say that the library cleared the room. I mean, they were here. They were here. I would have thought you'd get a few stragglers, but please proceed.
Okay. Hi. Okay, here we go. As I had pointed out in my narrative, information about what has gone on in the past fiscal year, our numbers continue to rise. Our circulation is incredible. The library is very, very busy. Our adult programming continues to be very busy. With the added hours that you gave us for our youth services librarian, we have increased programming. Rachel actually works 2 Saturdays a month, which is great, and she runs programs on both of them. It's a slow go, of course, with young adult programming, just because they're so busy, always so busy. But we are seeing a much bigger influx of kids coming into our programming with our teen advisory board. Also, we used the library this year for all AP testing, and for the senior projects, and that was very successful. They've already booked the areas again this year. So it's a very, very busy place. Millis Reed starts, that's our other collaboration with the schools. We have an author coming, and the book this time is Dark Tide. It's a Massachusetts, Boston story about the molasses flood, and that's a pretty exciting book. I hear the author is very dynamic. He's speaking both at the school and at the library. Okay? If you want to just turn to Form 1, Form 1 just speaks for itself. And I can go through the narrative for Form 1 and also, I guess it's Form 6. The salaries. The salaries reflect the difference in our salaries. Part of it is our on-call. We're aware of the fact that on-call is on a trial basis to see how it goes for 6 months, and it's gone very well so far. While I've been working as the acting director, I've had 3 sick calls. I've been able to call people in to help cover the hours and to cover the desk and to be able to keep us on task with our other jobs. I've had a vacation in that time period also, a couple of vacation days and a vacation week, and it's worked very well for me. We put in a number based on just it was a throw-out figure. Some of us had talked about it and thought 5 hours would be fine. Some had thought 10, so we decided on 8 as just a number to put out there. Okay? We also, the pages are increasing. They just increased, the state minimum wage went from $8 to $9 as of January 1st. And next year, they will also go up. So that number of $9,880 reflects half a year, 6 months at $9 and 6 months at $10. Okay. The expense sheet.
Wait, I'm sorry. When
Okay.
does that go up?
It went
minimum
January 1st of 2015, it went from $8 to $9 an hour. January 1st, 2016, it goes up to $10 an hour.
Okay.
Okay, so it's 6 months at 9 and 6 months at 10. Now, our expense form for the expense sheet, the numbers stayed pretty close. Well, the basic numbers stayed pretty close. The building repairs, I added in an annual sprinkler testing as per the fire code at $500. That was the estimate I had received, so I sent that along. And the gas bill has been running about $300 annually for the fireplace. So I added those 2 into that line. The books and periodicals are 19% of the total budget. So that was figured out. We moved out of the water and sewer. We had last year $5,000. We changed it to $3,500 and moved some money into library supplies and into the maintenance. As far as the maintenance goes, we do not have sharp containers in our restrooms, and we feel like that might be an issue, that we should have them in our restrooms. So that would be supplying those and also gloves. Yeah. Well, we have a lot of people that come in and they're like diabetics, and we really should have them in the major rooms. Okay.
Just a question or a follow-up.
Sure.
Does that include kind of disposal and everything, or is that
Sharps.
contracted out with somebody?
The Sharps container.
The shop container, I think, is itself. Yeah, I think it's self-contained once it's closed. I'm not sure how we get rid of it after that.
Fire department.
Yeah. Oh, the fire department. Thank you. Okay. I do know that, how we get rid of that. Sorry. Okay. And then the Minuteman Network membership, I want you to remember it's 2 different values. It reflects 2 bills that we get. One is for the membership fee, which is $25,475.22, and the other is for the digital content fee, which is $5,096.32, for a total of $30,571.54. Our equipment lease, our photocopier is leased, and the contract is up in February of 2016, but Tricia thought that they would do an extension. They had talked about that before she left. They would probably do an extension with the same rate. And the laptop computer for the director, that would be new. I was doing this budget when hers crashed on me, and it is 8 years old and has come up with a few little glitches. So we're concerned about having a new director and a laptop computer for them, so we'd like to put that in the budget. Okay, and the only other thing that useful is our computer system, and the contract subscription renewal is for August of 2016, which would go into our FY17 budget. We had contracted, I think, for 3 years, and it started last year.
Wait, I don't understand that one. I'm sorry.
We are useful. Our computers are come from a company. It's a zero client. When the person is finished with the computer, the patron is finished with the computer, and shuts down his websites, all his information is erased. It's a special system, and we have, I think, 16 computers through them. And that's all our patron computers. It's the children's, the young adults, and the adult computers. And we have a contract subscription, which would be renewed in August of 16. Right now, we have one of their units is down, and our contract states that we send it back to them and they send us a new unit. It's a small little zero client unit. So I'm waiting to hear from them.
But it comes in August of 17, or?
August of 16, which will be the FY17 budget.
So it's not in this budget?
No.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just letting you know ahead.
Oh, okay.
Okay? The only other thing, the above-level service operating budget request, I put this in because it was in last year, and I felt we should continue to think about this. And it would be for a part-time library computer coordinator, an IT tech services person. The heating system at the library is computerized. The lighting system at the library is computerized. Everything is computerized. And we right now have Joel, who is a senior, who's getting the senior tax benefit here, working for us. He works well over 100 hours. I just call him and he comes in and works on all the computers, updates them, makes sure that he also has backup on everything. And it's a very important position, but we really can't count on a senior to continue to do this forever. So we just want to make sure you think about that when looking at budgets. It's somebody we could probably use. I also want to thank the staff a lot. Since I have been acting, they've been wonderful, absolutely wonderful. They've worked as a real team. They have helped me at every step, reminded me of things that need to get done, ordered, taken care of, and it's working well. I'm exhausted, but it's working well.
Good.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Smith?
Maria, thank you for this. This is very informative and very well put together. As far as the computer tech goes, I think we all understand that, this is becoming more and more of a need across not just the library, but all town departments.
Yes.
And just, a quick update on our, the sharing committee that I'm on with other towns. This is also a topic there around something we might be looking into as far as collectively outsourcing this type of work with other communities to get a kind of discounted rate on this. So it's not that it's not being thought of, right?
Right.
So
right.
It might not be something that we specifically designate for the library, but might be part of a larger picture. It might not be this year. It could be this year, but it's something that we're thinking of.
We understand.
Actively.
We just want to make sure we'd be remiss if we didn't mention
Oh,
it.
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
You know.
It's just a good opportunity for me to give that update.
Yeah.
Plus, we also have that police station, which I'm sure is going to have the same type of, computerized
Just an
utilities.
example.
I don't know what to.
We had a power outage, and then the lights started coming on at different times again. They were going by a default menu, so then Steve came in, who's our custodian, who's great, and he was able to fix some of them. And we've been working off of that. Everything's new. It's the first new building in 50 years, so it's like it's the test.
The first new building in 50 years.
In Millis, basically.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
The rec department appointment?
Yeah. Next item on the agenda is the appointment of a Recreation Department committee member, Mr. Smith.
Also, this is to appoint Deborah, is it Jewel?
Jewel.
Deb Jewel. Madam Chair, I move that the Board of Selectmen do appoint Deborah Jewel to the Recreation Committee.
I'll second the appointment.
Is this subject to anything? Like, I mean, it's a committee. No, it's just a committee
The
appointment.
committee.
So moved and seconded to appoint Deborah Jewel to the Recreation Department Committee. All those in favor?
Aye.
We'll also be going over. I mean, this is to the term until May, when we do all the appointments for the following year.
Yeah. So, item number 15006, that's the Kensington Place, which is continued until the 26th of January. Item number 7, Mr. Aspinwall, is the waiver for the police fire station project.
Madam Chair, the building committee is looking at the application for stormwater permits necessary for the project. There are two components to the application, and they're based on square footage. I think, I'm sorry, the two components are, one is the application fee and the other is the professional review fee. It's within, certainly the board has the authority to waive any of these fees, but we do have to engage the services of a peer reviewer to look at the application for stormwater permit. Typically, we hire, we formally hired Ms. DeSalle, but we're not going to be doing that now. We'll have to get someone else to do our stormwater design. But we do have to pay them, so I would recommend that you not waive that fee, but you could waive the application fee. I'm not sure that the acreage, that if it's 1 acre, it's $500. If it's 3 acres or more, it's $750. So you could waive that application fee, certainly.
I thought what they were asking for, though, and there were some emails while you were on vacation, was the waiver of a planning board fee. And they assumed that our already waiver of the stormwater fee encompassed that.
You're talking about the peer review, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Is that what they called the planning board fee of like $2,500?
I took it, well, if it's a separate $2,500 fee, that is a planning board fee, but that board wouldn't have the authority to waive that. Though.
Exactly, that was kind of my point,
Right.
because this was going back, this was a,
That's a third-party fee.
So there was a
like,
discussion,
it's
but there
not-
was a discussion of stormwater in
we've
that.
already waived those, right?
No, that was the building, I don't.
Yeah, I thought it was just the building.
Right.
No, it says right here. Mr. Aspinwall recommended that, Selectman Smith made a motion to authorize the waiving of half electrical, entire building, and the entire stormwater management application fee. So now I'm wondering if what we're doing right here is trying to clarify that the entire stormwater management application fee does not include the peer review fee.
It doesn't.
But
It's
you need
clear.
clarification?
No. It
So,
doesn't include
is it good?
That's fine.
Okay.
And then the other thing they came up on fees, there was a question about a $25 fee with the assessor's office.
Yes, you can waive that.
Right, so I think they already paid it, but if we can waive it, and then they can get,
Right. It's a journal entry.
so it's with journal entry fee?
It's for an abutters fee,
An abutters
abutters list fee. Right.
So, Madam Chair,
Mr. Smith?
I move that the Board of Selectmen do waive the assessor's abutters fee for the library project in the amount of $25.
It's been, oh, I'm sorry.
Now it's been moved.
It hasn't, you haven't seconded it.
It's been moved and seconded to waive the assessor's abutters fee of $25 for the police fire station project. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we already did
8.
the water bill for the library. The next one is going to be number 009, which is the license renewal for the Gold's Gym. And I don't think that's in your packet. I think I have it here. No, I have it right here.
Okay.
I left it in there, sorry.
2 licenses.
Any conditions on these?
No,
It's just-
it's a common vic and an entertainment. And then the effective date would be January 1st of 2015, right? Or December 31st. It expires December 31st. But it is,
So it should be effective January 1st, 2000,
Okay.
that's retroactively.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Smith.
I move that the Board of Selectmen do approve the following licenses to GGM Incorporated doing business as Gold's Gym at 27 Millis Road, Millis, Massachusetts. These licenses would be effective January 1st, 2015. The first being a common victualler and the second being an entertainment license, both expiring on December 31st, 2015.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to grant a license to GGM Incorporated doing business as Gold's Gym, 27 Milliston Road in Millis, Massachusetts, effective January 1st, 2015, and expiring on December 31st of 2015. The first license is an entertainment license, the second license being a common victualler license. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item number 10 is an abatement, library abatement demolition bid award. Oh, that's exciting. Mr. Aspinall?
Madam Chair, this is for the project for abating the hazardous materials that are currently in the library. There's some asbestos and some PCBs, and then demolishing the building. The budget that was set for the project was approximately $50,000. The bids came in at, the low bid came of Francesco Demolition from Duxbury, came in at $94,000. I did have a long conversation with the chairman of the building committee about how this could be awarded, and the way to award this is to fund it partially from the library project and partially from the police station project. I did review this with a town accountant, and that can be done. We reviewed the wording of the article, and it does allow that to be done. Now, to make up for that loss of revenue from the police station project, there are options that you could pursue, including utilizing some of the drug forfeiture money that the department gets throughout the next 2 years to pay for some of the equipment that we have to buy for the project, or a supplemental appropriation could be sought.
But what we're doing now is just award.
Just awarding the contract. I'd recommend the board do award the contract to Francesco Demolition, the amount of $94,000.
Madam Chair?
Well, I'm sorry, before you do that, so I'm just trying to understand that this is a demolition including the abatement?
Yes, the hazardous materials must be abated from the building, removed from the building. There is asbestos ductwork, and there is PCB caulk.
And so that portion of it is $50,000?
No. I don't have the breakdown of those individual items, but the $50,000
Oh,
was
what
the
was
original
budgeted.
budget.
The original
Oh, I'm-
budget, and when
okay.
they
I'm
had
sorry.
the
Right.
materials were discovered, this is what it came out.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
Do we have to include any start and end dates or any conditions on that?
No, there's, in the bid spec itself there are start and end dates.
So he said it's kind of small here. Is it
94.
Francesco?
Francesco.
Francesco Demolition.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Smith.
I move that the Board of Selectmen award a bid and contract to Francesco Demolition for the, where are they from?
Duxbury.
Duxbury.
Out of Duxbury, Mass, in the amount of $94,000 for the demolition of the old library and abatement of hazardous materials within.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to award a bid to Francesco Demolition Incorporated of Duxbury in the amount of $94,000 for the demolition and abatement for the new library. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair,
Mr. Smith.
in an effort to keep our minutes to be up to date.
No, I don't think we have minutes.
We don't?
No, no.
Okay, but what we do have is two items that are unforeseen, that were unforeseen, yet require our attention this evening. And the first being a culvert bid. Mr. Aspinwall, this is, no, I'm sorry, cover bond. Bid bond. Okay, this is a bond anticipation note for $250,200 at the interest rate of 0.6%, expiring January 15th of 2016, for the chlorination contact loop project, water main loop. And that would pay off, right? Do we have that? Usually we have,
I haven't seen this.
no. It would, original loan was in the amount of 500,
The amount, I'm sorry, the amount of money that we initially borrowed was $278,000. We're paying down $27,800,
okay.
and then renewing $250,200. And then just update the board on where this project is. There's one facet of the project that we're still working on, and that is the loops are installed, and we now have to bring a small pipe back into the station from the for instance, from the well 3 near where the loop comes out to Birch Street. We have to bring a small 1-inch pipe back to the station. We're getting quotes on those now, and that'll be another $40,000 to $60,000, and the project will be done. It'll be done under budget.
And when is that I'm sorry, when is that expected?
Well, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll take quotes on it, quotes or bids. It's on the cusp of the bid versus quote line item, so we probably will bid it,
Okay.
and just in case.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Smith?
I move that the Board of Selectmen do authorize the treasurer to execute a short-term bond anticipation note for $250,200 expiring on January 15th, 2016, with an interest rate of 0.60% out of Eastern Bank for the chlorination contact loop project, water main loop.
What was the interest?
0.6.
0.60.
So less than 1%.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve a bond anticipation note for $250,200 at the interest rate of 0.60% per year. That bond is to mature on January 15th, 2016, and held by Eastern Bank. It's for the project chlorination contact loop project, water main loop. All those in favor?
Aye.
And the other item that is unforeseen, but nonetheless requires our attention, is the commitment to the collector for December 2014.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Smith?
move that the Board of Selectmen do commit to the collector the final water bills and special commitments for December 2014 and the fiscal year 2015, the amount of $866.69.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to commit to the collector for fiscal year 2015, month December 2014, final water bills and special commitments in the amount of $866.69 that will be committed to the collector. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I think that concludes our agenda, which is only a regular session agenda for this evening. Our next meeting is going to be held January 14th, 2015, at 7:30 in the high school auditorium. Wait, what did I just say? January 14th, 2015, at 7:30 in the auditorium. Original purpose of that was strictly for a sewer meeting. However, we will also be addressing the issue discussed tonight, which is the Clyde Brown MSBO project.
Madam Chair.
With that, Mr. Smith?
Just a quick question, Mr. Aspinall, on this meeting. Have we communicated out to the,
We began talking today about sending communication out, whether it's postcard letter or Swift Reach, and it'll go out this week.
And then following that meeting, which is it's a special meeting, limited in purpose and scope, our next meeting will be on January 26, 2014, and that meeting would be held here.
great. Madam Chair,
Mr. Smith?
I move to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, and thank you.